Could a mortal servant ascend to be a serpent head of the court? Divinity in Trench Crusade is an interesting spectrum that raises almost as many questions as it answers. True enough, there are purely divine beings such as Yahweh, Beelzebub, the Beast, angels and demons, but is it possible to achieve divinity through piety or corruption in return for service? The lore for the Hell Knights seems to suggest that these mighty servants of hell can be created a number of ways. True enough, a Hell Knight may be a failed Praetor, punished by its master and crushed into infernal iron armor before being forced into service to another. However, interestingly, while it may be a punishment for demons, the fate may be a reward for mortals. Should a mortal servant prove brutal, ruthless and wicked enough, the lore for the Hell Knights seems to suggest that their reward is apotheosis on the path to full demonhood. This is not our only indication that mortals may be gifted a measure of divinity by serving the court either. The heresiarchs, once the mortal Templars who turned their backs on God and opened up the Hellgate, are now bloated monstrosities many times the height of a man and granted great and terrible power. This apotheosis is not limited to the heretical forces either. The paladins, granted great power by the Metachrist program, were once faithful men and women, now empowered by communion enough to challenge mighty demon lords within hell itself. There are even men and women who have achieved powerful abilities through faith in the Lord and acts of worship. The saints, such as Saint Joan of Arc and Saint Dominica of the Zweihander, are powerful warriors and generals. Though we know little of the actual details of the battle, Joan of Arc is responsible for the end of the Corpse Wars and the defeat of the Grail hegemon Yersinia Rex. The only other entity known to have been responsible for the killing of a Grail hegemon is the paladin Engalia, the Sword of Heaven. While it is implied that Engalia killed the hegemon alone, it would appear that while powerful, the saints require allies to achieve the same feat. Saints also appear to be gifted a number of different abilities that enhance their current skill set and predisposition. For example, a learned scholar such as St. Eligius or St. Methodius is gifted with divine knowledge with which to create ever more powerful inventions, armor, and weapons of war to aid the faithful war effort. Alternatively, a great warrior of the faithful seems to be empowered with the divine gifts of martial skill and supernatural abilities with which to slay demons. One prominent example of this is Saint Dominica of the Zweihander, a great and powerful warrior saint, only killed at the Battle of Absalom when her charge faltered and a pupil seraph attacked her lines. Pupil seraphs and the cherubium of the Grail are seemingly demonic entities still resembling their divine origin, while being mortal enough to not breach the covenant of hell. The Covenant of Hell is loosely understood to be the terms of engagement between heaven and hell on the mortal plane. While the war for creation rages, it is primarily one fought by the free choice of mortals. Yes, there are demonic and mutated creatures spewing from the Hellgate, but none of them are fully divine, nor are they true demons. Every servant of heaven or hell that fights on the mortal plane must also have a mortal soul. While it is true they may also have a measure of divinity, this only lends more credence to the idea of divinity being the spectrum. If a true angel or demon were to enter the field of battle, this would trigger the divine retribution of the opposing side. What this means for the setting is generally considered to be its complete destruction by Yahweh, should the breach be sufficient. While we have seen a short story of the destructive power of an angel in the lore, true demons seem to have refrained from manifesting personally, while pushing the boundaries with avatars such as Grail hegemon. Thomas has even confirmed this to be essentially a divinely binding contract, with equal ramifications for either side. When one side is given assistance by its respective patrons, an equal answer will be given to the opposite side. This essentially ensures that the war will be decided by the will and ability of the mortals to fight it, not the divinity on either side. We even see this equality of assistance play out in the technological advancements on display in Trench Crusade. For example, when Saint Eligius discovered the formula for orichalcum steel, the warforges of Tartarus enabled infernal iron armor, such as the heretic anointed's heavy Gehenna armor, to be forged from hellish alloys. Both sides gained access to artificial constructs, such as the warwolves and Tarquin creations of the Iron Sultanate. With demons on the field of war, spreading terror and causing the hearts of mortals to falter, the Trench Pilgrims created the Iron Capirotes to shield the faithful minds from the horrors of war. On a grander scale than the soldiers of war, when Marbas taught the heretics to create their submarine fleets, the Crown of England developed the moving fortress of Britannia. In the Levant, the artillery guns of New Antioch exceed 300 feet in length, and with the Crusader knights going to war in chapter holes, the heretics forged an answer. The mouth of hell is a truly titanic engine of war, an artillery platform measuring 666 feet in length. So what does this have to do with our original question? Well, simply put, as above, so below. What is gifted by heaven is answered by hell, and if a thing may happen to an angel or a demon, it may also happen to a mortal. This does not just extend to the ability of a mortal soul to fall to corruption as a divine one can, but apotheosis is also possible. In the lore for the sorcerers and pit locusts of the court, we are told these creatures have an ancient divine past. In the case of the sorcerers, they are the half-dead remnants of shattered, fallen angels. Now mostly mortal, their sliver of divinity is enough to grant them terrible power. So with the law for the court establishing that angels can have their divinity damaged enough to become mortal, and the saints, heresiarchs, communicants and hell knights all showing us that mortal empowerment and ascension is possible, how does it happen? Well, once again we find one possible mechanism in the law for the court of the seven-headed serpent. The Praetors are the great demonic generals of the court's warbands, bred from long bloodlines of true demons, diluted with the blood of mortals and beasts. If a Praetor is able to serve the court with truly blasphemous distinction and win the favour of its patron, it may be gifted a dark apotheosis. Great iron pincers will tear the mortal aspect from its soul. Now fully divine, it becomes a true demon. At this point it may join the hierarchies of court society, but may no longer pass the veil of tears onto the mortal plane due to the covenant of hell. This is most likely only one of the many ways apotheosis may be achieved in hell, and while heaven will have mechanisms to create a similar outcome, the method is most likely different. So what does this all mean for our mortal? Well, once again, everything hinges on the execution of that mortal's free will. We see this in the law for the heretic legions and their wretched. If a mortal chooses the path of salvation or damnation, then they may have an avenue of divinity open to them at the cost of their free will and mortal soul. The choice may be forced on them by circumstance, and the options available may be poor, but the law is clear: it must be a choice. Even the servants of the Black Grail have an albeit horrible choice. Allow the Grail to take hold, give yourself to Beelzebub and hope he deems you wicked enough to become a plague knight or a corpse guard. The alternative is to have your soul trapped and tortured in your plague-riddled husk as the Black Grail drives it forward to enact Beelzebub's will. Either way, as sludge or as slave, when the Grail takes hold of you, you will serve Beelzebub. The choice is in how, or if you will destroy yourself with holy fire before either can happen. For the heretic legions, the rules of hell are clear. To join the ranks of legionnaires or anointed, you must make a pilgrimage to the Hellgate. If you survive this ordeal and are deemed wicked enough, you may become a legionnaire. If you have the willpower required, you may pass into the lake of fire and emerge anointed. Both of these eventualities require a deeply wicked soul, but the choice to make the journey is ultimately yours. For a wretched, they may choose to cast off the shackles of slavery and earn their freedom by choosing to fight for hell, though the act required to earn this freedom is often so blasphemous that it would most likely damn your soul in the process. But again, the choice of blasphemy or death is ultimately yours. In a recent podcast episode, Thomas and I discussed how one possible path to ascension as a Hell Knight maybe for a wretched to perform such a deed. From that moment, an act so vile as to damn their souls may even be rewarded with ascension to the rank of Hell Knight. Once here, devotion to their demonic patron and greater acts of blasphemy would see them gifted with even more power. As their power swells and the demonic gifts outweigh their mortal soul, there is a theoretical tipping point at which they would now be more divine than mortal. From here, the path to greater apotheosis is open to them. With more and more divinity granted to them, they may reach a point in which their divinity outweighs their mortality. Now unable to return to the mortal plane, their mortal spark may be ripped from them to take their rightful place in the court as a full demon. However, given that some of the heresiarchs seem not yet to have achieved this level of apotheosis, that a wretched would do so seems unlikely. However, the mechanism and path to do so is at the very least there. What do you think? Could the mortals in your campaigns reach such a level of greatness that their patrons grant them apotheosis? Let me know your stories of your campaign heroes in the comments below. To listen to the podcast that inspired this video, click the link to your left. Alternatively, to discover the latest videos uploaded to the channel, click the link to your right. For discounts on your hobby supplies, check out my affiliate links below, and please like, subscribe, share a favourite video with a friend, or become a channel member. With that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon.